All right, folks, we're going to continue today with our factoring, doing a little different type of factoring. If we were in class, we would be doing all sorts of different types of factoring. But where we're doing it online, I'm just going to show you a couple of the most basic types of factoring, and then we'll build off of that in the fall when we're actually hopefully back in school. Now, the first type of factoring that I've been showing you is with the GCF, right? If the polynomial has a term in common amongst all of the terms. However, that's not always possible. Sometimes you might have a polynomial where there is not a GCF. And so there is nothing that they all have in common. That doesn't mean that you can't factor it though. And so today I'm going to show you a real quick and easy factoring pattern that exists with trinomials. Now on the board you might look at this and say, well, you don't have trinomials on the board, you have two binomials. And I have that for a reason. If you remember when we were multiplying out binomials like this, we would use the distributive property, right? We would do the x times the x, which would give us x squared, the x times the 5, which would give us 5x. Then we would move over to the 6, and we would do the 6 times the x, which would give us 6x. And then we would do the 6 times the 5, which would give us the 30. Right? And then at the end, we would combine the like terms in the middle here. So we would end up with x squared plus 11x plus 30. And that would be our final answer. Right? Well, what if I wanted to reverse that? What if I wanted to give you, let's say I gave you the polynomial. That's already a trinomial. And I wanted you to factor that for me into two binomials. So in effect, what I'm asking you to do is to reverse what we just did here. We already did this, where you multiply out the polynomial and get your final answer. Now I'm asking you to go the other direction. I'm asking you to take a polynomial and factor it so that this is the answer. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you think. If you look at this polynomial, it starts with an x squared. So anytime it starts with an x squared, the only way to get an x squared is if you have an x here and an x here, because your first multiplication is going to be this times this. So if it's an x squared here, it's always going to be an x and an x in the binomials. Now, what you probably didn't notice is if you look up here, the two numbers that go here and here always multiply to this last number here and add to the middle coefficient right there. 6 and 5. 6 times 5 is 30, and 6 plus 5 is 11. So when I'm trying to figure out what goes here and here, I am trying to figure out two numbers that add up to 14 and multiply to 40. So two numbers that add up to 14 and multiply to 40. So we start thinking, what multiplies to 40? Well, right away you might think 8 and 5 multiplies to 40. But those don't add up to 14. And then what else multiplies to 40? How about 4 and 10? 4 times 10 is 40. And 4 plus 10 is 14. So those are the correct numbers. The 4 and the 10. And those would be the correct factors for this polynomial. X plus 4 and x plus 10. So it would ask you to reverse this process and factor all you're really looking for. You know it's going to be an x and an x at the beginning of the binomials. And then all you're really looking for is two numbers that will multiply to this last number and add up to that middle number. And those are the numbers that are going to go in the binomials. Okay? So let's do a few more of these. And then obviously we're going to be working on this week and next week. But it's really just those patterns that I was just showing you. Okay? So how about if I did x squared plus 10x plus 16. And I want you to factor that down. Okay? So factor that down. So I'm going to be looking for, I know it's going to be an x and an x. And then I'm going to be looking for two numbers that multiply to 16 and add up to 10. So two numbers that multiply to 16 and add up to 10. Well, what multiplies to 16? Probably off the top of your head, you'll think 8 and 2. Do those add up to 10? Yes, they do. So that is our answer. So the numbers that go here have to multiply to the last number and add up to the middle number. That's it. Okay? So, like, let's look at what if we had x squared this one. Okay? All right? So now, again, I know it's going to be an x and an x, and I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 15 and add up to 8. So what numbers will multiply to 15? I think the first one you probably think of is 5 and 3. Do those add up to 8? Yes, they do. So there you go. So this is the pattern that allows us to factor trinomials like this. Okay? Now, we can do it with some, none of these had any subtraction. But we can do it with subtraction as well. So, let's say, for example, we had this polynomial. Now, what is going to multiply to -4 and add up to 3? So you have to pay attention to the sign in front of the number. So we know it's going to be an x and an x here. What multiplies to -4? Well, if it's going to multiply to a negative, it means the signs are going to be different, right? So like 2 and -2. Those would multiply to -4. But those would not add up to 3. So those are not the numbers we want. What else multiplies to -4? Not many things. 4 and -1. Do those add up to +3? Yes. So that is our pair of numbers. +4, so I put a +4 in one of them, and a -1, so I put a -1 in one of them. It does not matter if you put the +4 here and the -1 there. It does matter that the 4 has to be the one that is plus, and the 1 has to be the one that is minus, because they have to add up to +3, not -3. So this is our answer right here. Okay? So what if we had x squared minus 2x minus 8? Okay? Now, we again know it's going to be x and x. And now we need two numbers that multiply to -8 and add up to -2. So negatives. So if it's going to multiply to -8, that means they're going to have different signs. So it could be 4 and -2. Those would multiply to -8. Do those add up to -2? No, they add up to +2. Well, what about if it's -4 and +2? Do those add up to -2? Yes. So the correct choice here is -4 and +2, because those multiply to -8 and they add up to -2 since the 4 is the one that's negative. So it'll be -4 in one of the binomials and +2 in the other binomial. So you have to make sure you pay attention to the sign. The numbers have to multiply to this number and add up to the middle number. Paying attention to the sign. Okay? Let's do one more that we'll have you try. And then we're going to practice this week and into next week. And this, along with the GCF factoring, is going to be the major type of factoring we're going to go over here in our online learning. Okay? So this one, how about this one? Let's see if you can figure this one out. This one. Okay, you take a second, pause the video, see if you can think about that one. What would be the binomials for that? And then we'll come back. Okay, so if we take a look, we know it's going to be x and x. Now, you need two numbers that multiply to positive 16 and add up to negative 10. So, how is this going to be possible that the numbers multiply to a positive and add up to a negative? Both numbers need to be negative, because a negative times a negative would be a positive. So hopefully maybe you figured that out. So you might have thought, well, 8 and 2, those multiply to 16, but yeah, they don't add up to negative 10. They add up to positive 10. So 8 and 2 aren't going to work. But negative 8 and negative 2 multiply to positive 16, because a negative times a negative is a positive, and they would add up to negative 10. So it would be correct to put x minus 8 and x minus 2. Again, it doesn't matter if you have the minus 2 here and the minus 8 there. The order when you're multiplying does not matter. Okay? So this is a little different type of factoring with trinomials. When we don't have a GCF, you set up two binomials. We know that the first terms are going to be x's, and then we are looking for two numbers to fill the other spots that multiply to the last number in the trinomial and add up to the middle coefficient. So watch the video closely, replay it if you need more looks at it. Again, if you need help, email me specific questions about specific problems in the video. Okay? All right, have a great day.